What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a recipe, and this is the guy that basically started the discussion. So we just did some diets yesterday to send to him. We've been talking about some starch availability, and that is another discussion, but we're going to actually start putting in some flaked corn into this farm mix now. And we've got a pretty good balance of 85 pounds of milk with this new latest input. Right now we're running, 82-ish on milk at the dairy. Intake is about right there. And Kurt visited the dairy with me shortly after we started working with it, working out of a problem. And he's up to about 4,000 cows now. So this is just a template. It could be 400. It could be, 40. It's the same idea. But what we wanted to show was basically, here is the diet, and we're just doing economics. So if anybody wants to fix my diets later, I can send them out to you. You could fix them, send them back to me. But this is what's going on at the dairy here. So we're feeding this. We have, I did not put a flaked corn price in, so let me put that in. I think they said it was $20 a ton or $25 a ton more. So I'm going to put in 220 and then just save this as a working copy here. So now the idea is I have all my prices in that I can work with this producer. I have all the prices. The one thing that's unknown right now is what's the milk price going to be? And so what we have done continually with, the producers here is we've always put in component pricing. And right now, if I'm going to try and do some forecasting, I have no idea where we are on milk price. And so what they did is they started telling me, hey, the milk price is going to be $13 or $14. And so I can run, this is his price on what he's forward contracted and what he got last month. He's a great business manager. So if I use a function here on production efficiency, here's all my costs. And again, the system is set up for current production. So the room and office and Hermano have set this up so that you can go current production or predicted expected production. But if I go down here to production efficiency now, and you can see my income over feed cost, income over purchase feed cost, and this might be review for most of you. The cool little graph is right over here. So the production efficiency. So what you can see is here's the milk income per cow per day. Here's the total ration cost. And we have just, taken over the dairy with this guy. The farm buys the corn silage from dad and the farm. And I'm like, we have to fix this next year because there's no reason that the farm should pay so much for corn silage. I don't, a premium over that, but that's another topic. Anyway, you can see here we are on the income over feed cost per head. And, again, this is a phenomenal little, diagram, the little speedometer. It shows you what your low benchmark is. So your return of $5.70 on this would put you in a very inefficient aspect, or a high benchmark would be that if $8.50 income over feed cost, it puts you over here in this high parameter. So the things that influence that we can't adjust are basically feed price, milk price. We can spend time buying cheaper feeds if we can. We can forward contract milk, but as nutritionists, we sit around and try to do all this, and boy, you kind of frustrating because we basically can help by putting these rations together, but it is interesting that a lot of this is out of our hands. So again, this is a phenomenal graph to look at. He's got current production versus expected production. And the way that we have used the system is put in all the current production parameters right in here, and then using it as current production and not expected. So now I have my feeds described and put in the proper price for. In a normal market, in a normal situation, I go out to the farm structure and I would list the dairy as component pricing, and we would be taking the component pricing. This dairy, for example, is multiple component pricing. I would go up here to component pricing. I can keep getting the automatic downloads. As we talked about it, for like this dairy, I basically put conventional milk price, and then I go in and put it in for what that ration is going to do, what the milk price is going to be for that herd or that pen. So I've got that in here. Everything looks good. Let me just save it again so my accounting is done right. We can do some comparisons and everything also. But the function that we wanted to look at now was, if I go to the whole herd econ for this dairy, I can click on recipes. I can go over to the herd. Right mouse click allows me to look at reports for the farm. The first two are basically reports back to, here's the ration, and you can see these in other videos that we've done. We've got a greenhouse emissions and greenhouse gas, but today we're looking at this summary of herd economics. So when I click on that, what it does, it's creating a report around this dairy. If I have all the pens described, all the heifer diets described, everything's in here on the economics listed by pen. When he was at $17 milk with all his forward contract and everything, it was kind of similar to what we ended up with a couple months ago. You can see I took out the fresh pen just for simplicity. I put in the 4,000 milking cows, 53 pounds of intake. The diet's costing us $6.61, so the income over feed cost is here. I zeroed out the fresh pen because it was complexing our scenarios, but 4,000 milking cows, 82-ish pounds of milk for his milk price. Then the total for the pen or the herd per day, this is the bottom line the dairyman's seeing. And so this is where Kurt and I started discussing how we could use this tool. So now here's my cost. Here's my income over feed cost. Of course, they're the only ones generating an income. Here's the heifer pool. Now as I look down, when I have to feed this heifer pool, so here's my income over feed cost back to the dairy. So now these guys get the letter out. They say we're all going to $13 milk. So I could save this report by going into report, go to utilities, create a file, create a PDF. So I may just save these on my desktop, and this may be number one. And so I should probably take some time to list it better. But so it's going to print out a report like this, and here's my basically income over feed cost. So, everything's happened. So what we can do is back this off a little bit and say, okay, now if the milk price really goes to, our $13 back on this recipe, now I can go in here and say, my price is going to be $13.50, and now go back and save this. And I'm just going to save it right over the top. When we're running the scenarios, I was saving each one of these rations with the difference in here. Now, if I rerun this, it's going to bring this in here with basically $4 less milk, right? So again, go to main menu, recipes, and now I can go to the right mouse click and do summary of herd economics. Okay, that will generate the report and show where we are. But the idea now, as we talked about it, if we have to take a 10% reduction? The dairy's question back to me, and when I included Kurt in this, was, okay, if they want to milk 4,000 cows 2x and they want to cheapen ration cost, how do we do this? And so we started running these scenarios. As you can see behind here, right here, we did basically 3,000 cows milking 3X and getting 75 pounds of milk. So now you can see his income over here over feed costs per day. And that's basically at the same production level. These 4,000 cows are, again, milking the same thing. But when we talk as nutritionists about income over feed cost per cow, do we realize the return back to the dairy if we've put in all this information correctly? And so what we did is we started running some scenarios, and what we can do is go back to the diet now and say, now let's, as nutritionists, if we want to cut the cost of this, we already talked about feeding 4 more pound dry matter of corn silage. So I can go to the dry matter box plus and do 4 and come down here to corn grain and take out minus 1.5, minus 1.5, and maybe a pound of protein. I think I didn't. I got to close this. Sorry. Nothing's going on here. So now take out, 2.5 and 3 here. So now the idea is if I can basically reduce my, if I go to 2X and start asking for 2X milk, can I cheapen up the diet enough and go back to 2X and make some adjustments here on the diet and walk through this with the dairyman about how we might do this. On the rations, now I'm looking at 77 pounds of milk. I put that in here, and since in my scenario I could try and figure out what component pricing is going to do, but now I'm looking at maybe taking this herd to 2X and going to 77 pounds, dropping intake. So I may save this diet as the 2X 77 pounds. Now when I run my scenario, you will see that, of course, my income over feed cost is going to drop, but was it due to the bottom line of the dairy? And so we had run many different scenarios of cutting this guy back to 3X on 3,000 cows or 2X 4,000 cows and running these whole herd scenarios for him. Again, now, if we wanted to, we could look at production efficiency. We can look at where we are on our barometer. And then we can go through and just generate the whole herd econ one more time. And, one of the things that happened with the dairy is they had an opportunity already yesterday to sell 120 free-bred heifers, and they have the inventory. So, as of next week, we will start running those scenarios as soon as the heifers leave the property. But these are some of the things that as Kurt and I started talking about, how do we help these guys make these decisions? Because if we're talking about income over feed costs and how to drop milk and everything, what does it do to their bottom line? And using the tool that, the RUM&N team and Hermano have put together, this can really help us understand their business a little more and kind of come through some of those scenarios with them. I don't know if I'm not probably sharp enough to go through every scenario, but now I can actually start modulating some heifer pools here by taking the 120 head out of these two groups, or out of this group, I think, and then watching that have an effect. So if I go down to 540 here, and then I recalculate that, again, we're feeding less head, and then what we can do is see what effect that has on the bottom line for the dairyman. Most guys that we've been working with at a constant level anyway, what we've done is we've pared down their heifers to, whether they're breeding, sex semen and beef, and then selling the beef calves right away or whatever, but still drastic times are going to cause for some rethinking of this. And again, you can save this as a report. Usually when you're setting this up, you might have to go through here and put your columns in here. Sometimes it may want to have quite a few digits here, so you may have to go through here and clean this report up. But I think it's something that can be used for us to help those guys make decisions. A report generates right here, and I can go to save this, and then I've got two different scenarios for the guy to at least have a discussion about. And so as we're working through that, Kurt and I were just shaking our heads and trying to figure out how do we help these guys. And this is where we came up. One last thing, just for completeness, to show you, and I think everyone probably is familiar with where that is. But inside the diet, again, here's the diet. If we don't know which are purchased and out-of-pocket feed costs, you can change that here right in feed info, and you can go in here and put everything as purchased or homegrown. And most of these things are contracted, so we didn't put prices in there. The only thing in here is, the out-of-pocket feed each day, each week. So there is some advanced features using NDS2 in this management area right here. These are two features in an advanced module, management module, and this is a separate for purchase module, but it includes two things, one called farm economics and one called feed inventory. So let me just go to farm economics here, and what we can do is look at the system opens up. You can go to a farm list over here, and I'll just stay with the same one as far as going to the farm we've been using in this demonstration. And so it is loading a complete list, again, of all the recipes that we have, all the cost, inputs, outputs. And so from here, you can see it is looking at individual recipes. Basically on this herd, we have the fresh and the AI. It's loading down here the heifers. And so here, off of the current, what I can do is we changed this on the last recipe I used, but I can go down here so I can pull the most current recipe that we have. This would be a little more functional. Again, it's a standalone module, but you have so much more capabilities here to start working with what you can do with changing inputs. I can change milk and butter fat, change the price right here. And this was some of the things that Kurt alluded to. Refusal, the page goes right on out here as far as looking at, the income per cow per day. Again, I need to probably put the milk price in here that we had at $17.50 and get those prices in here. So again, what we'll what we can do is look at different scenarios, different way this is working, but this is a much more intense piece of software. Looking at the young calves, each calf group, you could put in the mortality, the yardage, the interest, the cost of gain, start manipulating around some initial targets if it's way in and way out periods. So this just does quite a bit of stuff. Looking down here at the enterprise system, so looking at the heifers and the beef enterprise, and of course the dairy would be listed up in here. A lot more information, maybe a little simpler to use also as we started playing around with that. You know, that this system could be used a whole lot easier, a whole lot more interaction. Up in these frames here, if the dairy goes down to a certain milk production, I could go and work with different recipes that we saved over here. So here's the list, and so I can manipulate that system any which way how we're doing it. And so as one of the questions came up, is there a way you can change the milk price? Well, in this module, the expanded module, yeah, we can manipulate that right in here, looking at what this does on $17 milk versus $14 milk. And this is totally a little more interactive, less flipping around to do. So you can work with that in the system here. So that's part of that management module. What I want to do is just show you the other part, and this is really a cool feature. Looking at the inventories, and again, it opens up. So this is part of the management module in the inventory function. So it opens up the page and you go to farms. And what I may do is I may go down to this example farm that we were looking at. Very simplistic, 100 head of milk cows, 20 fresh pen, 50 in the late lactation. And if I scroll down, what it's doing is it's listing far-offs, close-ups, steers, heifers, 3 different heifer groups here that I've listed. So now I can come back and I can look at a summary for any period here and look at tons used or pounds used per day in our example of 300 head versus tons used for the 90-day period. And again, I could stretch that out to you know, a 6-month period and run that for you know, half a year and allow that to you know, recalculate. So anyway, just looking at some functionality of what we call the management module, and that again is a separate module, and it has that feed inventory and that expanded farm economics. So just some more tools to use to help your dairymen. The things that are in NDS presently that might help us with this current economic situation we have. So thank you.